Lord Tyrael arrived with his combat patrol at the ruins of a battle-torn city on the planet Cornulia, once occupied by the Alterian Empire of mankind. The elven noble had come in secrecy to receive an ancient relic that he paid a band of dwarven smugglers to extract from a dangerous distant asteroid zone. The dwarves were supposed to meet the elves at the city ruins to exchange the relic for their reward. However, instead of the dwarves, Tyrael and his elves encountered a monster of the Hive aliens with its bodyguards. It was too late to escape, and Tyrael quickly commanded his company to assume battle formation. They would have to fight through hell to avoid the same fate that met the dwarves. This is a battle report for a game of OnePageRules Grimdark Future, version 3.3.1. It is played using the basic rules with 1500 points lists. I play the High Elf fleets, while my opponent uses the alien Hives. Here is my list. An elven noble is attached to a unit of gliders. The noble is equipped with glider wings and a master spinner gun. The glider sergeant carries a shred blaster that has more shots than the laser blaster carried by the rest of the grunts, and it has rending. This unit will be placed in reserve to be deployed turn 2 onwards. I have a combined unit of 10 retributors with 2 twin shard carbines and 1 carrying a flicker shield and a dire sword. This will give the unit regeneration while the shield carrier is alive and a blast weapon in combat. Next, I have a unit of 3 striker jet bikes. One of the models has a flicker shield, and as with the retributors, they will gain regeneration. It is one of the 3 units in the list with the scout ability. Then I have a combat walker carrying rapid shard cannons. It has a decent 2+ defense, and it also has scout. Finally, I have a unit of strikers that I intend to use as a throwaway scout unit for grabbing objectives. It has a hologram field upgrade that grants them stealth, which adds 1 to the required hit roll when enemy units shoot at it. For my opponent's list, we have an absolute monster of a Hive Lord. It has a whopping tough 12, defense 2+, regeneration and psi barrier, making it incredibly hard to kill, particularly without any deadly weapons. While it has no shooting attacks, it is absolutely devastating in melee, with a total of 16 attacks, with a minimum of AP 1. The other hero in this list is the Winged Prime Warrior. Its wings give it both ambush and flying, so it can pounce at its target upon arrival and eviscerate them with its melee attacks. There is a unit of 3 Hive Guardians. They're tough 3 each, with quality and defense of 3+, making them pretty good all around. They have a total of 12 AP4 melee attacks that will enable them to eviscerate their target. Along with the Prime Warrior, the Shadow Hunter and the unit of Shadow Leapers will be in reserve to ambush after the first turn. The Shadow Hunter has an ability to target a single model in a unit of multiple models once per game, so it can pick out to kill a specific model in a unit, such as a hero, or one that has an upgrade that gives the unit some bonus. Both the Shadow Hunter and the Shadow Leapers have enough serrated blades to eviscerate their target in melee. Having rolled 3 on a d3, the number of objectives to place is 5. After a roll-off, the players alternate in placing the objectives. Then we roll off for choosing the board edge and initiative. The High Elves win the roll-off, so they will deploy first and also activate one of their units first. Both sides declare the units to be in reserve. For the High Elves, the Elven Noble attached to a unit of gliders starts in reserve, while for the alien Hives, the Prime Warrior, the Shadow Hunter, and the Shadow Leapers are placed in reserve. Then the High Elves declare the Combat Walker, the Strikers, and the Striker Jet Bikes to be deployed as scouts. They will deploy last and reposition 12 inches. The Elven Retributors are deployed first, close to Objective 2 at the bottom right of the field. The Hive Lord then appears on the top left. close to Objective 1 and 5. As the rest of the elves deploy as scouts, the Hive Guardians are deployed next. They are placed further left to the Hive Lord, close to Objective 3. The Combat Walker is positioned opposite the Hive Lord. The Striker jet bikes are placed in the centre, and the Infantry Strikers are deployed in the far right because they're patriotic. All scout units then reposition forward on different objectives. The High Elf Combat Walker advances cautiously, avoiding getting too close to the alien Hive Lord. It ignores its closest target and trains its twin shard cannons at the lesser grunts that are the Hive Guardians. Out of 6 shots, 3 hits and 2 wounds go through. Being tough 3, all the models in the target unit remain intact, but one of them is on just 1 wound left. The Guardians shrug off the pain and move forward to Objective 3. The Elven Retributors make their move next and advances behind the Walker, leaving a foot on Objective 2. The Hive Lord moves sideways past a building to stand on Objective 1. The Elven jet bikes dart forward towards the Hive Lord. They stop right in front of it to block it from going further forward in the next turn. They then shoot all their shard guns and pistols at the monster with a total of 9 shots. With some terrible dice rolling, only 3 hits, but one of the hit was on a 6 and gains AP 4 due to the rending rule. The towering alien manages to save 2 of the hits, including Psi Barrier, and just 1 wound goes through. Good news for the elves, there's only 11 wounds left to go on the Hive Lord. With no more alien units left on the table to activate, the elves go again, activating its last unit, the Striker Infantry. They move forward onto Objective 4. By the end of the turn, the elves capture Objectives 2, 4, 5, and the Hive aliens capture Objective 3. Objective 1 is contested. Both sides declare ambush. The elves just have the noble attached to the unit of gliders. For the aliens, all the units in reserve have been declared for deployment. The aliens win the roll-off and deploys first. A unit of Shadow Leapers appear from the shadows behind the Retributors. The Elven Noble flies in with his bodyguard of gliders in the centre. Then the Winged Prime Warrior swoops in behind a building in the right, ready to pounce at the Elven Strikers. Finally, the Shadow Hunter also emerges from the Elven backline. The Shadow Hunter starts the turn by hunting at the Retributors. It starts by using a takedown attack in the hope to remove the model with the flicker shield to take away the regeneration from the unit. The takedown attack hits true at its target. The shield bearer even fails his defense roll. However, the variability the attack was trying to negate takes effect. The model is saved by the regeneration roll. The Shadow Hunter continues the attack. 6 attacks hit out of 8. The Retributors only managed to save 1 wound by regeneration, losing 5 models. Ironically, I chose to remove the model with the flicker shield. The Retributors fight back. All 5 attacks hit with their close combat weapons, and 2 wounds go through. Having lost the combat, the Retributors take a morale test and passes. The Elven Noble and the Gliders activate next. They fly over the Retributors towards the aliens that appeared from the shadows. The Noble lands just out of reach from the Hive Lord's range of psychic interference, and casts Curse, targeting the 2 units that emerge from ambush. It spends 5 of the 6 spell tokens so that the casting succeed on 2+, and indeed it succeeds. The Shadow Hunter and the Shadow Leaper both take 6 hits with no AP. The Leapers take 3 wounds, while the Hunter takes 2. The latter only has 2 wounds remaining. Next, the unit performed its shooting. They split fire at the same targets, the Gliders at the Leapers, the Noble at the Hunter. The shots from the Gliders' blasters deal a total of 5 wounds, which removes 2 models and leaves the last model on just 1 wound. The Elven Noble's shots from his Master Web Spinner only deals 1 wound on the Shadow Hunter, but it leaves it with also just 1 wound. Both alien units fail their morale test and become shaken. Meanwhile, the alien Prime Warrior flies over the building onto Objective 4 and charges the strikers. However, due to a stroke of misfortune, only 2 of the 8 strikes hit, and the strikers succeed on one of their defense rolls, so only 1 wound goes through. The strikers strike back with 8 attacks and hits twice. The Prime Warrior saves 1 of the hits and 1 wound goes through. The combat is a draw and the Prime Warrior backs away. I did not expect the strikers to survive like that at all. The Elven Walker moves over Objective 5, then shoots at the Hive Guardians on the left with the rapid shard cannons. Out of the 6 attacks, it hits 5 times, with 3 of them hitting on a dice roll of 6s, therefore having a P4. The Hive Guardians only manage to save 1 wound, so 4 wounds go through. As a result, 2 models have been removed, but the last Guardian passes its morale test. The Hive Lord activates next, and starts with spell attacks. It starts with Psychic Blast against the Elven Walker. Using 2 spell tokens to cast the level 1 spell, it succeeds in casting it, and the Walker takes a single AP2 hit with Deadly 3. Luckily, the Walker manages to defend the attack, and avoids losing half of its wounds. The Hive Lord then casts Shriek on both the Walker and the Jetbikes using the remaining 4 tokens. The spellcasting succeeds, and the 2 target units take 4 hits each. Both the Walker with its 2+ defense and the Jetbikes with their regeneration manage to save all the hits and take no wounds. After an unsuccessful round of spell attacks, the Hive Lord charges the bikes. The Jetbikes survive the stomp and the heavy slashing blade attacks, but the attacks from the last slashing blades deal the final blow, and like that they are wiped out.
Ouch!
The strikers on Objective 4 pull away from the Prime Warrior and shoot at it with their shard pistols. Despite hitting twice with 1 critical hit, the Warrior defends both attacks and the shooting inflicts no wounds. The Shadow Leaper spends its activation to unwaver itself. The Retributors move towards the centre and fire their shard carbines at the Prime Warrior. Despite being halved in number from the previous attack by the Shadow Leaper, the Retributors have 14 shots thanks to 2 models carrying twin shard carbines. They do 6 normal hits and 2 critical hits with 6s, and the Prime Warrior takes 4 wounds in total. It is now bleeding heavily with just 1 wound remaining, but it stands firm after passing its morale test. For the final activation of the turn, the Hive Guardians move forward towards the Elven Walker to contest Objective 5 and hopefully charge it in the next turn for payback. At the end of the turn, the Elves keep hold of Objectives 2 and 4 as units that ambush cannot claim objectives on the turn they arrive. The Hive Aliens gain control of Objective 1 and keep hold of Objective 3. Objective 5 is contested. With the Hive creatures closing in from all sides, the Elven Noble moves towards the centre. With 4 spell tokens at his disposal, he attempts to cast Destroyer at a roll of 2+. However, the Hive Lord emits a wave of psychic interference to jam his spell. Using all 3 tokens, the required roll for the spell is increased from 2+ to 5+. The spellcasting fails, as the Elven Noble screams in pain from a sharp headache caused by the radiant distortion from the Hive Lord. The unit proceeds to shoot, splitting targets again. The gliders at the last Hive Guardian, and the Noble at the heavily wounded Shadow Leaper. The Shadow Leaper is finished off, as the monofilament wires from the Noble's web spinner slices through tough alien flesh, like Damascus blade cutting through tofu. The gliders disappoint their leader, as only a single wound is inflicted on the Hive Guardian, and the hits from the Shred Blasters were all shrugged off by the defense rolls. Despite the heavy damage it sustained previously, the Prime Warrior charges the strikers and eviscerates them. The Retributors move into position to exact retribution. They too split fire, targeting the Hive Guardian with 8 shots from the 2 twin shard carbines, and the Prime Warrior with 6 shots from the regular shard carbines. The Prime Warrior receives 2 regular hits and 1 critical hit, and despite saving 2 of them, a single shard round penetrates its thick hide and finishes it off. On the other side, the Hive Guardian takes 6 hits and also fails to make enough defense rolls. The Hive Lord roars in anger as it sees its subjects fall. It charges the walker from behind. Unfortunately, the walker miraculously survived the attack with 2 wounds remaining. The walker sluggishly lifts its leg for a roundhouse kick, but the 2 hits bounce off the Hive Lord. The pilot of the walker stays determined to hold its ground as it passes its morale test. Barely standing, the walker leans on the closest building wall and turns its turrets towards the Shadow Leaper. The shard rounds from the shoulder-mounted cannons pierce through the alien camouflage and finishes it off. At the end of turn 3, the elves reclaim Objective 5. At this point there is little hope for the forces of the Hive to achieve victory, but we enter the final turn of the game nonetheless, as the Hive Lord's lust for revenge have grown too great. The Hive Lord activates first and charges at the Elven Noble, and absolutely devours him along with all the gliders. There simply was not enough armor or wounds in the unit to soak up the damage from 16 AP1 attacks. The Hive Lord consolidates 3 inches and contests Objective 5. The Retributors restrain the rage and grief of seeing their leader murdered and advance to grab Objective 1 behind the Hive Lord. They shoot at the Hive Lord and inflict 4 wounds. The walker also shoots at it and causes 2 more wounds, dropping its health to 5 wounds left, which is just under half its original strength, forcing it to take a morale test. However, the Hive Lord passes it with relative ease. With Objective 1 now captured by the elves, the result of the game is a High Elf victory with 3 objectives to 1. I certainly enjoyed that game, but I definitely feel that I was saved by a couple of miracles, namely the survival of the Striker Infantry against the initial attack of the Prime Warrior, then the Hive Lord failing to kill the Combat Walker. Also, we definitely rushed the terrain placement, and I felt I had an unfair advantage as my army was made up of shooters and there was little to block line of sight or provide cover. We should have placed things like difficult and maybe dangerous terrain too. So it's definitely worth spending some time on terrain placement at the start of the game instead of rushing right into it. Anyway, it was still fun, and we ended up playing beyond turn 4 until one side was wiped out. The elves managed to cause another wound on the Hive Lord, but by turn 6 it finished off both the walker and the retributors. Man, that thing is a monster.